I think that even though I think the West has very much sympathy for Tibet, and I mean, it initially had some romantic ideas about Tibet.
Yes, some people.
However, that really, when Tibetans came and when they started following many of these authentic great masters, it's not because it was Tibetan Buddhism, but because it really spoke to them.
Yeah.
It resonated with them.
Yeah.
What they've been for years, particularly also came around the 70s. There were a lot of experiences were happening. And so it really, a lot of stuff that were coming up, that it could really respond to that and brought some understanding about their own spirituality, I think. And that, I think that is one of the greatest contribution. And so as such now, I think it has reached, I think, many fields such as science and like in therapy, very much transpersonal psychology has been inspired very much by Buddhism and many others.
That's true. Now, which relates to one thing, I always say that, it's known that, I'm sure you've heard it, that Arnold Toynbee, the great English historian, in 1971 at Wellesley College, actually, in a speech, commencement speech, he said that the greatest event of the 20th century will later be seen by historians as having been not the world wars and not the technologies, but the encounter of Buddhism with the West. That will be considered the most important event of the 20th century. He said that, and everyone has been mystified ever since. And of course, people thought that he meant, some sort of big religious thing. A new religion enters the scene. But that, of course, is not at all the case. Jesus and the great Hasidic masters and other teachers in religions have taught the same things. Subdue your mind, don't hate people, hatred brings more hatred, violence brings more violence, love is the only way of conquering hatred, etc. This knowledge is there in the other religions, so it's not simply Buddhism is saving the world as a religion. What he meant by it, from his view of the axial age, the time when Buddha lived, Plato, the pre-Socratics, Pythagoras, Confucius, Zoroaster, Isaiah. It was the time when all of the traditions in Eurasia, at least, that we still are coping with, and we're still trying to work with all the different Eurasian-based civilizations. That is when they all started, and the Buddha was able to sort of accomplish more on a civilizational level because of the nature of India at the time. I'm sure that's what Toynbee meant. And therefore, it's the Buddhist sciences, it's the Buddhist culture, it's the aspects, the nonviolent aspects of the Buddhist civilization. But it's very radical for Westerners to get. When I used to teach my classes at Amherst College, and my students were all into wanting to learn about mysticism from Asia, from the East. But when you might suggest that there was maybe a social ethic, there was maybe even some plumbing in ancient India that was superior to what was in the West in ancient time, that they couldn't understand. We are educated to think that the West has always been the most important thing, the Mediterranean, Europe, and then America on the planet. But that's a distorted chauvinist, if I may say so, in this place, chauvinist view. And actually, the center of Asia was always India, and the center of civilization, in a way, was India. China, to a lesser extent, actually. And things spread from there in all directions. To give an example concretely from my own case, when people nowadays ask me, like, well, why did you get so excited about Tibet? They think it's some mystical thing, and maybe there was some element like that. But when I think about it now, what I was most happy was to discover the Tibetan alphabet. Is that a shock to you? But stop to think. Have you ever really thought over A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Have you ever thought over just how logical that is? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. We all learned it, didn't we? But what's the order of that? A is what? A is ah. B? B can be B, ba, bee, boo. I never even knew until I discovered the alphabet something that I wonder how many of you really know. What is the sound of a consonant? The sound of the letter B. It is not B. It has no sound. Only when it becomes a vowel, departs from it, from a position of the mouth, does it have a sound. The Tibetan alphabet takes the gutturals, ka, ka, ga, nga, the palatals, cha, cha, ja, nya, ta, ta, da, na, borrows the letter a, which is the primal vowel, ta, ta, da, na, pa, 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 ma, labials, dentals, all linguistically organized. When I discovered the Tibetan alphabet, I realized I had come into something that had the makings of a sane culture. I'm sorry, I was born in New York City. I went to St. Bernard's English school. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Where is the logic in that? Many years later, I discovered that linguistics, our great Western science of linguistics, was only created after German and Russian philologists discovered Sanskrit, which is the base of the Tibetan language. So there's a whole element, I'm sorry, I'm being a little challenging here, I know, in Aspen, Colorado, but there's an aspect about our culture that we think is the superior that, we need a little upgrade. We need Western Euro-American culture 2.0. And we're going to get that culture 2.0 by really taking another look at these other cultures, and of them, Tibet brings to us the ancient Indo-Tibetan culture, which the Tibetans themselves look to India. They don't claim we Tibetans were always great from primordial beginning of the universe. His Holiness Dalai Lama will always say he is a representative of the great University of Nalanda, the 17 great pundits of the great Nalanda University, which was like the Library of Alexandria of India, that was not shut down, actually, by religious fanatics in the 4th century and thereby ushering in a dark ages in the West. It was a bright ages until too many Western conquerors showed up, actually. And so that we are rediscovering part of our human heritage that we have to expand our sense of cultural background to include. And that's another great gift of the Tibetan culture, in fact.